Hello everyone, I am Afreen and welcome to today's lecture. Today my topic is going to be about Maslow's model of healthy personality. My topic will be covering 6 major objectives which will improve your understanding of the self-actualizing person, Maslow's approach to personality, motivation for healthy personality, self-actualization as a model of healthy personality, meta-motivation, and characteristics of self-actualizers. So let us start with what Maslow's model of healthy personality is. According to many psychologists, psychology should concentrate on study of the healthy personality. The level of psychological health we bring to bear on our issues has a greater impact on the content of our lives. Abraham Maslow stated the problem clearly. I quote, "If you deliberately plan to be less than you are capable of being, then I warn you that you will be unhappy for the rest of your life." Let us now discuss the self-actualizing person. Maslow's research was inspired by his own observations of Max Wertheimer, a Gestalt psychologist, and Ruth Benedict, an anthropologist. He observed traits that set them apart from others and sought to apply his discoveries to friends, acquaintances, existing and departed renowned people, and college students. He ultimately chose 49 individuals who appeared to be the role models for psychological wellness. The historical figures include Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, Baruch Spinoza, Albert Einstein, Eleanor Roosevelt, J.W. Van Gogh, Pablo Casals, John Keats, Adlai Stevenson, Robert Browning, and Martin Buber, although Maslow withheld the identities of the living individuals. For the assessment of the live individuals and the analysis of biographical and autobiographical material for the deceased, projective techniques, free association, and interviews were used. He discovered that everyone has instinctual wants, which are universal desires that drive us to develop, evolve, and realize our potential so that we can become whatever we are capable of becoming. Maslow came to the conclusion that less than 1% of people attain self-actualization. But he believed that if more people were aware of their potential, they'd be able to achieve the ideal condition of existence he observed in his self-actualizing subjects. Now we'll be talking about Maslow's approach to personality. Maslow's main objective was to determine the extent of our capacity for complete human development and expression. He held that only exceptionally healthy individuals should be studied in order to understand psychological health. He criticized Freud and other personality theorists who focused mainly on neurotics and highly disturbed people in their attempts to understand personality. According to Maslow, if we only look at the handicapped, the immature, and the unwell, we'll only see the sick side of the human nature, people, when they are at their worst, rather than when they are at their finest. Let me bring your attention to another objective of today's lecture, which is the motivation of the healthy personality. According to Maslow, every human has an inbuilt desire or propensity to achieve self-actualization. Other innate and universal needs drive us, and they are structured in a hierarchy of importance, and they are 5 in number. Maslow's hierarchy of needs can be compared to a ladder. We must step onto the first rung before attempting to step onto the second, and so forth. Similar to this, the second level need must be met before the lowest and most pressing need, the self-actualization, emerges. This process continues up the ladder until all 5 needs have been met. Therefore, gratifying the 4 needs that are lower on the hierarchy is a requirement for reaching self-actualization, and these needs are the physiological needs, the safety needs, the belongingness and love needs, needs for respect, and the need for self-actualization. Before the urge for self-actualization arises, the demands in this order must first be at least partially met. Not all 5 needs drive us at the same time. At any one time, only one need is more important than the others, and which one is more important depends on which needs have been met. Now let us understand these needs one by one. The first one is the physiological needs, which include need for food, water, air, sleep, and sex, and these needs must be satisfied in order to survive. They are therefore the strongest in the hierarchy. The second need in the hierarchy is safety needs. We are driven by safety needs when our physiological needs are met. These include the need for safety, peace, order, and protection, as well as the absence of fear and worry. Everyone, according to Maslow, requires a certain amount of routine and regularity. Since uncertainty is difficult to accept, we work to achieve as much security, protection, and order as we can. For instance, in order to maintain the fringe benefits, we make deposits into our bank saving accounts, get insurance, and hold on to stable jobs. The requirements for safety are not excessive or compulsive for healthy individuals. The majority of us do not completely give in to or submit to our safety demands, but we are uncomfortable when security and stability are completely lacking. The next in the hierarchy is the need of belonging and love. We are motivated to satiate the urge for belonging and love once we have attained a certain level of security and safety. To feel like we belong, we might join a group or club, adopt its ideals and traits, or put on its uniform. Establishing a close, caring relationship with another person or with people in general satisfies our desire for love, and in these interactions, it is equally necessary to give and receive love. Maslow thought that because of our mobility, it was getting harder and harder to satisfy our desire for love and belonging in the modern society. Following the need of love comes the need of self-esteem. We need a sense of esteem if we are fortunate enough to love and belong. Maslow identified between two categories of esteem needs: self-esteem and esteem obtained from others. Esteem from others comes first. It seems that we struggle to think well of ourselves unless we are certain that others do as well. Externally generated esteem can be found on things like reputation, admiration, status, prestige, or social success, all things that have to do with what people think of us and how they respond to us. We are assured and safe in ourselves when we have a sense of internal or self-esteem. We also feel deserving and sufficient. When we don't feel good about ourselves, we feel inferior, defeated, and helpless to deal with life. We need to know ourselves well and be able to evaluate our strengths, weaknesses objectively if we are to have a true sense of self-worth. If we do not understand ourselves and what we are, we cannot respect ourselves. When all of these needs are met, the ultimate need is the need for self-actualization, which becomes our motivation. The ultimate development and use of all of our skills, as well as the fulfillment of all of our characteristics and potential, is self-actualization. We must develop into who we are capable of being. Even though the lower order requirements are met, we still feel safe, physically and emotionally connected to others, loved, and worthy of respect. If we don't try to fulfill the demand for self-actualization, we'll feel irritated, restless, and unsatisfied. If such occurs, we won't be content with ourselves and won't be able to be considered psychologically well. Later on, Maslow proposed a secondary hierarchy of requirements that complements the first hierarchy. The wants to know and understand are those in the second hierarchy, which are also inborn needs. The urge to comprehend must first be met because the need to know is the stronger of the two. Young children naturally investigate their surroundings with a desire to learn about and comprehend it. They have a natural curiosity about the world. Adults in good health are nonetheless genuinely curious about the world. They want to examine it and provide a framework for understanding it. Failure to meet these requirements is upsetting, as is failure to meet any need, and it leads to a personality with no intellectual curiosity, no interest in engaging in life, and no little zest for living. If these requirements are not met, self-actualization is not attainable. Now, coming to what meta-motivation is, how does it move the self-actualizing person? Maslow had the suspicion that these exceptionally healthy people varied from ordinary people in terms of what motivated them, both numerically and qualitatively, as his study with self-actualizing people continued. As a result, he put forth a radical theory of motivation for those who are trying to achieve self-actualization. He named this idea growth motivation or meta motivation, and it is also referred to as being or be motivation. Meta motivation goes beyond the conventional notion of motivation. The word meta signifies after or beyond. It paradoxically seems to describe a situation in which motivation is completely absent. The highest motive, Maslow wrote, I quote, is to be motivated and non-striving. In other words, self-actualizing persons do not strive, they develop. We must make a distinction between the motive of self-actualizers, which is called meta-motivation, and the motivation of others in order to comprehend this theory. Maslow referred to the latter as demotivation or deficiency. Motivation to make up for an organismal lack is known as deficiency motivation. For instance, the body experiences a deficit if we go without eating for a while. Both physical and psychological pain and suffering are brought on by the impairment. The organism experiences a level of tension that it is driven to lower. Therefore, this type of motivation aims to fulfill a need in our lives. These are our more basic needs and they drive us to fill a certain gap in our lives. Both neurotics and those with normal mental health have this drive to pursue lower need fulfillment. In contrast, those who are in the best health, that is self-actualizers, are more focused with meeting their higher wants, which include realizing their full potential and learning about and comprehending their surroundings. In this instance of meta-motivation, the individual is not attempting to make up for the deficiencies or ease anxiety. The objective is to improve the joy and ecstasy of being alive while also enhancing and expanding the experience of life. Maslow outlined a list of meta needs that appear to represent states of development or being that self-actualizers strive for. They are also known as B values by Maslow, and they are states of being rather than becoming or striving towards some particular objective. They are also ends in themselves rather than means of obtaining other ends. Failure to achieve these states or any of the lower needs would be damaging in some way if they exist as needs, and Maslow claimed that they behave like needs. In fact, metapathology is produced when the meta needs are frustrated. We may be aware that there is a problem, but we are unsure of what it is or what we are lacking. We experience feelings of isolation, helplessness, meaninglessness, depression, despair due to metapathology, yet we are unable to identify anything specific. The metapathologies signify a limitation or obstruction of complete human development. They impede us from expressing, using, realizing our potential to the fullest extent possible. It is crucial to emphasize that people with metapathologies have met their basic demands. Now, moving forward to the last objective, which is characteristics of self-actualizers. Psychosis, neurosis, and other pathological abnormalities are absent in self-actualizers. They maximize their abilities and traits to the fullest extent, becoming examples of maturity and health. They are aware of their identity, purpose, and direction. Age is another crucial general trait since self-actualizers tend to be older and in their middle years. Maslow believed that younger individuals lack a strong feeling of autonomy and identity. Although the drive for self-actualization is innate, childhood events have a significant impact on whether it develops later on. Maslow thought that excessive freedom and permissiveness, as well as strong dominance and control of the child, were both bad. So, the best method for raising children is freedom within boundaries, which is a balanced blend of control and freedom. Maslow stressed the significance of the first 2 years of life, saying that it will be very difficult to develop towards self-actualization if people have not experienced enough love, stability, and respect in the first 2 years of life. Beyond these general points, Maslow discussed a number of specific characteristics which describe self-actualizers, and these are: the first one is an efficient perception of reality. People who are in the perfect health have an unbiased perception of the things and people around them. Maslow referred to this as be-cognition or being perception. They perceive the world for what it is, not just how they would like or need it to be. Maslow discovered that self-actualizers are accurate judges of people and can easily spot fakery and dishonesty as part of this objectivity in perception. The second one is a general acceptance of nature, others, and oneself. Self-actualizing people embrace who they are, their flaws, and their strengths without complaint or concern. Even these incredibly healthy people have flaws and shortcomings, but they don't feel guilty or ashamed about them. They accept who they are as they are. They don't act defensively or conceal themselves behind masks or social roles. They accept themselves completely, and this acceptance applies to all the spheres of existence. In general, they are equally understanding of the flaws of people they know and the entire human race. In contrast, neurotics are crippled by shame or guilt over their weaknesses and failings. The third one is spontaneity, simplicity, and naturalness. Self-actualizers are unpretentious and forthright in all the facets of their behavior. They can openly express their emotions rather than having to keep them hidden. Simply put, we might say that these individuals act naturally or in line with their nature. Self-actualizers are considerate of other people as well, though they'll temporarily suppress their emotions in circumstances where doing so would injure other people or where the matter is unimportant. Therefore, they can participate in the required social games when doing otherwise would offend someone. Neurotics and non-self-actualizing persons cannot function spontaneously. The other one is a focus on the problems outside themselves. Self-actualizing persons love their work and feel that it is naturally suited for them. Through this intense dedication to their work, self-actualizers are able to achieve or fulfill the meta needs. They do not engage in their work for money, fame, or power, but because it satisfies the meta needs, challenges, and develops their abilities, causes them to grow to the highest level of their potential, and helps define their sense of who and what they are. The other characteristic of self-actualizers is a need for privacy and independence. Self-actualizing people have a strong demand for separation and seclusion. They do not shy away from human interaction, but they also don't seem to require other people. They may be distant and restrained because they do not rely on others for fulfillment. Their actions and emotions are very egocentric and self-focused. This demonstrates their capacity for independent thought, decision-making, and the application of self-discipline. On the other side, neurotics are typically very emotionally reliant on others to provide them with satisfactions that they are unable to provide for themselves. The other characteristic is autonomous functioning. Self-actualizers prefer and have the capacity to operate independently of the social and physical settings, which is closely tied to their need for privacy and independence. Because they are no longer driven by deficiency motives, they are no longer reliant on the outside world to provide them with pleasure because the fulfillment of growth motives comes from within. Their capacity to grow is determined by their innate abilities and inner resources. People who are less healthy rely heavily on the outside environment to satisfy their deficiency-based motivations. Now moving to the other characteristic of self-actualizers, which is a continued freshness of appreciation. No matter how often an experience is repeated, self-actualizers always view it with a fresh sense of pleasure, astonishment, and wonder. These events such as a sunset, a symphony, a favorite meal, or their spouses laughing can all be appreciated by self-actualizers as though they were brand new. Some people respond to the outdoors, others to kids, and still others to music. The experiences of life do not bore them. As a result, they rarely take anything for granted and are constantly grateful for what they have and what they can do. The other characteristic is mystical or peak experiences. Self-actualizing individuals occasionally have tremendous and overpowering ecstasy, bliss, and amazement that are comparable to profound religious experiences. The self is transcended and the person is overcome with a sensation of power, confidence, and decisiveness, as well as a profound sense that there is nothing they can't do or be. Maslow discovered that these peak experiences were frequent among his healthy participants. Maslow emphasized that not all peak experiences are as strong, some can be more subdued. All of us have these minor encounters occasionally. However, the healthy person experiences peaks more frequently than the normal person, possibly daily. Maslow began to distinguish between two categories of self-actualizers: those who experience frequent peaks of extreme intensity and those who experience fewer, softer peaks. Both are incredibly healthy because they strive for self-actualization. But he also puts out the idea of two different levels of self-actualization, each defined by the number and nature of transcendent peak experiences. These individuals fit into two categories: normal super healthy and super healthy. Maslow called them peakers and non-peakers, or transcenders and non-transcenders. These two types of self-actualizers differ in additional ways. Non-peakers frequently interact successfully with the outside world. They are more likely to be doers than meditators or contemplators, effective and pragmatic than aesthetic, reality testing and cognitive than emotional and experiential, and they lead the world for the right reasons. Peakers have peak experiences that reveal surprising truths about themselves and their surroundings. They are more obviously meta-motivated and they spend more time in the be realm. They are more prone to be inventors and discoverers, to be more spiritual, poetic, religious, as well as more sensitive to beauty. Peakers may seem to others to be nearly holy, but they are less practical than non-peakers since they have transcended daily worries to a larger extent. Now, the other characteristic of self-actualizers is social interest. Self-actualizers have a great desire to aid humanity as well as strong and deep feelings of empathy and affection for all people. They share a sense of brotherhood with every other member of the human species, which is their united family. The next characteristic is interpersonal relations. Relationships with others can be stronger for self-actualizers than for people with ordinary mental health. They have the capacity for stronger affection, more intense relationships, and fuller identification with other people. In contrast to non-self-actualizers, they have fewer but more intense interpersonal ties. They are kind and compassionate towards others in general, but they can be severe and on rare occasions ruthless towards people who are overly critical, pretentious, or pompous. Their general concern for the human race is not diminished by their sporadic animosity towards particular people. The love self-actualizers feel toward another person is of a special kind, being love or be love, as opposed to the deficiency love or de-love. The other characteristic is a democratic character structure. All people, regardless of social class, education level, political or religious affiliation, race or color, are tolerated and accepted by extremely healthy people. Self-actualizers are not concerned with such distinctions. Maslow had a good suspicion that they hardly ever recognize these disparities. However, their actions go further than simple tolerance. The other characteristic is discrimination between means and ends, between good and evil. Self-actualizers make a point of clearly separating means from ends. The outcomes or the objectives are considerably more significant to them than the methods of achieving them. This is made more challenging though because self-actualizers frequently view particular experiences and activities as means to their own aims rather than as means for less healthy people. The ability to discriminate between good and evil, right and wrong is another trait of self-actualizers. They follow clearly stated moral and ethical principles in all circumstances. The next characteristic is an unhostile sense of humor. Fully healthy people have different senses of humor and laughter than typical people have. Less healthy people laugh at three types of humor: superiority humor, which plays on someone else's inferiority; hostile humor, which involves someone being wounded; and authority rebellion humor, which is related to an Oedipal situation. Philosophical in nature, self-actualizers' humor involves poking fun of people in general rather than any particular person. It frequently serves as instruction and is written with humor in mind. So, instead of eliciting loud laughing, this type of humor produces a smile and a nod of understanding. The other characteristic is creativeness. One trait that one would expect of people who are self-actualizing is creativity. They are unique, creative, and innovative, though not always in the sense of producing a work or art. Not all of them are authors, musicians, or artists. Maslow related this ability to be creative to children's innocent ingenuity and direct manner of seeing the world. Under the pressure of school and other societal influences, the majority of us lose this creativeness from childhood, whereas self-actualizers either maintain it or reclaim it later in life. Next characteristic is resistance to enculturation. Self-actualizers can fend off social pressure to think or act in a certain way since they are independent and self-sufficient. They remain internally detached, distant from their culture, and self-directed rather than following others. They do not overtly revolt against the culture though. They don't purposefully flout social norms to show their independence. They won't openly question societal norms and rules unless a situation arises that is extremely important to them personally, often a moral or an ethical issue. To conclude, we can say that Maslow provided an optimistic perspective of human nature that showed what humans are capable of. Metapathology appears to explain why so many people who seem to have it all are miserable. They are feeling the pressure of the need for self-actualization since they haven't gone the extra mile to satisfy their meta needs. The challenge presented by Maslow's hierarchy of needs is to progress to a greater level of growth and in the right circumstances, possibly reaching self-actualization. That brings us to the end of the topic. Thanks for watching.